Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Dollars to Deuces, episode 51, and this week we will be discussing conference championship games and the results of last week's game. Abe, as always, I'm already said your name. I'm joined by my man Abe. Nate is on vacation with his family down in Disneyland, so enjoy, my friend. And Abe, how's everything going?
Good. I was just telling you before we got on the air that's it's a little chilly here up in Illinois, but happy to be here. You know, every week I sit here and say like, man, I'm excited for this weekend's games, and I was thinking about it today when I was driving. I'm like, what do I like most? Do I like the wild card weekend? Do I like divisional weekend? Do I like conference championship weekend? Do I like Super Bowl? And like every weekend, it just seems to get better and better. So it's only having two games this week. Obviously, the downfall of the season almost finishing up is kind of saddening. But this weekend we got four teams that are playing really good football right now. So I'm really looking forward to this weekend.
Yeah, it was last weekend, the divisional games and stuff like that. I mean, they were some good games and everything. I mean, some went probably didn't go the way we thought it was going to go,
Yeah.
but still all interesting games as we'll discuss. Before we get into that, let's go ahead and knock out some of these formalities. As always, you could find the crew at toiletsandtitles.com where we have videos, articles. We discuss NFL, fantasy content, college. We got a great group of guys that pretty much cover every angle that you could think of. So hop on by, check us out, and enjoy the content that is on there. As always, please hit and like the subscribe button at YouTube. Give us a 5-star review when you're on there. You could also hear us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Podbean, Twitch, When a Family Breaks on Facebook and Spotify. Abe, real quick, how are you doing in our Total the Titles playoff league?
Not very good. I'm still hanging towards the bottom. Last year at this time, as if you've listened to us the last few weeks or leading up to the playoffs, last year I was hanging really towards the bottom all week long, or all postseason long, and moved on up. Conference championship weekend, then ended up getting second after the Super Bowl. I don't think that's going to happen this year. My strategy has not quite worked. So I'm about 2/3 down. I don't have enough room to make up, and I don't have enough weapons left over to quite do that. So my strategy this year was not as effective as what it was last year. So I think last year what really helped for me is I kept holding on to the Bengals players. And so obviously they got to the Super Bowl, and I got to use all them in the Super Bowl, whereas I don't know if a lot of people, they may have used them, sporadically in weeks leading up to the Super Bowl. So this year it's, these four have been, probably 4 of the 5 that a lot of people picked, with the exception of, Bengals or Bills. When you're going into this, you think, well, that Bengals Bills game is a game that, we don't know who's going to win that. But these other teams with San Francisco and Philly, you probably assume that they're going to make it, to the Final Four, and then obviously the Chiefs. So it's been a little bit of a struggle for me this year with that league. I'm in 2 different postseason leagues, and the other one is kind of completely opposite. It's you just pick a lineup, you pick 16 guys at the beginning of the season or at the beginning of the postseason, and you can play them as much as you want, as little as you want. So that one you kind of strategize of who's going to play the most games, and I'm doing pretty well in that one, but it's I still don't have a chance unless Cincinnati plays San Francisco in the Super Bowl. So if that happens, I might have a chance. That's a pretty big pool. There's about 50 people in that as well. So, but yeah, it's fun. I love these postseason fantasy leagues. They're awesome. I mean, ours is awesome. There's a lot of strategy to it. And you sit there and like every week you're like, you brought up a good point last week, with some of your quarterback thoughts. And then I was sitting here last weekend with J-Rob, who comes on, and he was over here watching a game with me, and him and I were kind of talking about our strategies, and I'm like, man, I wish I'd have thought of that, So there's some things that I probably should note, so I do that next year, but I'm not that good. So
Yeah, I was giving a little insight on little tips on how I always strategize when I'm doing these kind of leagues. As I mean, I'm not bragging or anything, but I think I'm sitting fifth overall.
You're in the top. I know you're in the top 7 or 8. So
Yeah, I
I
think it's
looked at it briefly this morning.
yeah. It just like I said, me and my son, we've been talking about it and everything. And speaking of sons, shout out to Coach Sheps, his son Emmett. I think Emmett's sitting like third overall. I mean, kid's really killing it on making his picks. So I'm sure Coach is real proud of him and everything.
Yeah, I saw that.
My son's in it too, but obviously he ain't doing as good as Coach, his son, and everything. But we sit and discuss it and everything. I could go deep into it, but it's kind of working out for me. I think this year too, one thing that's kind of worked out to me is I've been lucky on picking kickers each week. I've been able to get a kicker that's been double digits each week, so that's tremendously helping. So
yeah, that helps. You know, you get a kicker like that because a lot of people just. I mean, when you think of fantasy, you think like, oh, kicker, you know, like whatever. It's not a big deal, you know, or even like interior linemen or DNs. But those people can score some points, and so there's some strategy behind it. So it's different because you're just like, you know, at that point in time, when I did this last year, I remember like I don't do much IDP. I don't do any IDP actually. So when I got to those positions last year, I was like, oh, really? Who cares? And then this year, I'm like, wait a second, like I need to pay a little bit more attention to this. And so those kickers and those, you know, those spots, those spots down low, I don't usually pay a lot of attention to them, but this year I have. Maybe that's why I'm kind of struggling a little bit, but.
Yeah. Well, we could discuss more later on. Let's go ahead and get into the meat and potato of the show. One thing before we do get started, I do want to thank I want to nail the patrons.com. Look, come support us. Join our group and everything. We discuss everything in there. We release a lot of stuff in there that we give our clientele, if you would per se, a little bit more insight on some stuff we talk. We help out with a little bit of everything. So I just want to give a shout out to our patron supporters. I know a lot of them are in our Tolus Title Fantasy League, and without them, man, it really helps us out a lot. So real shout out to them on supporting us. All right, Abe, let's discuss last week results. Like I said, I think you and Abe went. I mean, you and Nate went 3-1. I went 2-2. Overall for the playoffs, so you're sitting at 7-3, and me and Nate are sitting 5-5. So you are definitely killing it in how we did overall the first 2 rounds. Let's start out with Jags and Chiefs. They were favored. Chiefs were favored 8.5. Did the game go the way you thought it would go?
Well, I mean, obviously with Mahomes injured, it was different. You know, one thing in this game that I, you know, I've kind of gone back on and, you know, thought about is when Mahomes was hurt. You know, obviously a lot of us in the fantasy world and the sports betting world, we've seen Jerick McKinnon really come along in the last 6 to 8 weeks. And so I think a lot of us had him to score a touchdown, get his receiving yards, maybe get his rushing yards. He took on a whole new role after after Mahomes got hurt. And that was something that I don't think, you know, from some of the podcasts I've listened to this week, some of the stuff I read is not really being talked about a lot because McKinnon, he kind of switched game plans because usually he's kind of that chip guy and then gets out, and Mahomes, you know, kind of that's his, you know, his drop down target, or, you know, sometimes they even have design pass plays for him. But because of Mahomes losing his mobility, McKinnon stayed in and blocked a lot. And so that really limited him to, you know, what he could do as far as putting up fantasy stats or even, you know, hitting some overs for some sports bets. So I, you know, after thinking about that quite a bit, I thought, you know, a lot of people are counting him out and saying that, you know, he's, you know, now it's Pacheco season and stuff like that. It's not. I think Mahomes loves having McKinnon in there. I mean, McKinnon, he laid on a couple blocks last week on some linebackers. I was like, holy shit. Like, I mean, he's not a big guy. He's not a big running back, but he was, you know, he was awesome. He was very, you know, he was as important, if not more important in that game last week than he's been in games where he scored 2 touchdowns. You know, he really protected Mahomes, gave Mahomes that extra second that he could afford to have because Mahomes lost his mobility, obviously. So thinking about McKinnon, you know, I don't, you know, I will obviously get into some stuff this week. I don't have him a lot for a lot of player props because I think he's going to have to do that a little bit more again this week. You know, I don't know. You know, we'll see what Mahomes' mobility looks like once they get out and start playing. But one other thing I really just could not stand about this game is Travis Etienne. I don't understand why he doesn't play. Like I don't think he saw the field but one possession in the fourth quarter. I know they're behind, and that Agnew and who's the other running back that they bring in?
Hastings.
Hasty. Like I know that they're your hurry up offense. But if I'm a defense and I'm scheming against the Jaguars, one of my number one, defensive eyes on their offense is ETN. Like this dude can bust one at any single time. And that was one thing that kind of really bothered me is like, why is he not even on the field? Like if, I know they have pass plays for him. I know he's not greatest in pass pro, but he needs to be on the field. I mean, he's gonna get attention, and he wasn't on the field hardly at all in the second half. I mean, like I said, I think he was on the field in the fourth quarter for one possession. It wasn't even a possession. I think it was even a set of downs. So that kind of pissed me off because I had a lot of stuff going on with ETN. But this Chiefs team came out early. They played really good. They looked really awesome the first drive. Mahomes was flipping the ball, doing his sideways stuff, doing all of his fancy stuff that he did. And you're like, whoa, I mean, this isn't even going to be close. And then we saw, Jacksonville kind of climb into it and backdoor to cover the spread. But, for the most part, it was different once Mahomes went down. And you got to give credit to, Henny. I mean, he came in and, drove the ball down for 98 yards, got him a touchdown while Mahomes was, arguing with Reed on the sideline and going down and getting some x-rays. But, this game that Chiefs team looked really, really good. And then when Mahomes went down, they, Henny's drive, they still looked really good. And then it seemed like, okay, the game was starting to settle down a little bit, and Jacksonville started unleashing on Mahomes. You can do that when you take away that guy's mobility. He's really good running the ball in the postseason. So we'll see what he's like this weekend. But the game, for the most part, I thought the Jags would put up a little bit more of a closer game than, and obviously they did cover, but it never seemed that close to me.
Yeah. So as you said, Jags did cover. We all did pick the Jags. Couple one-offs as far as player props. I think we all had player props, but the only one that hit was you hit with the Kelsey over 6.5 receptions. The dude killed it last week with 14 receptions.
Yeah.
And it was just this game probably would have been a blowout. They probably wouldn't have covered if Mahomes got hurt the way he did.
I agree.
So it is. I mean, you nailed it on the head, everything you were talking about. This is how ETN was an afterthought. I didn't even think about him the whole time in the game or even all this week until you just mentioned him. And that just goes to show how he didn't do nothing. Yeah. I mean, it was like, yeah, you're right on the head. You nailed on the head when it's like the usage of him this past week was.
And he ran the ball really good in the first half. I mean, like they were getting chunk yards. I mean, and obviously when you're down 2-3 scores, you got to change up your game plan and the script and all those things. I get that, but he's got to be on the field. I don't care what's, how many scores you're down. If you have a guy that can take it to the house, and I know that Agnew and Hasty are explosive also. But if I'm a defender and I see ETN in the backfield or Agnew or Hasty, I'm thinking ETN can come out of the backfield, catch it, take it 80 yards. He can run the ball for 80 yards. Agnew and Hasty are explosive, but they're not ETN. So, and it showed. I mean, I think Agnew had a big time drop down by the goal line. Hasty had a couple missed blocks and he's supposedly better in pass pro. But he would like chip and then release, and he wouldn't chip. So Trevor Lawrence was under a little bit more pressure, but yeah, it was, I think this game would have been, quite a blowout if Mahomes would have stayed healthy the whole time, because he looked really good to start.
Yeah. Props to the Jags though, for getting as far as they did. Look, this is a young team. The future's bright for this team, and I'm excited to see what happens next year for them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that now you add a wide receiver and Calvin Ridley to that core also. So, they're going to be even more explosive next year.
All right, let's hop into the next game from last week. The Giants and the Eagles. The Eagles were favored 7.5. They pretty much manhandled that game the whole time. I mean, I mean, it was nothing like the other two games. I don't know. I don't want to say the Giants came out flat and everything, but it just they didn't have anything for the Eagles. They looked like the team that the beginning of the season. Hurts looked good the whole game. I mean, Goddard looked good. I mean, you name it. I mean, I picked the Giants to cover. Nate did the same. You picked the Eagles.
Well,
As far as I'm looking at, you're green across the board. So go ahead and discuss it with me.
Let's not forget, I wanted to pick the Giants, and you guys both had the Giants when I got on here, and so a last minute before we went on, I switched it to the Eagles just so we had a different game. And then as you and I were speaking, you said, "Man, I want to switch this to the Eagles," and I said, "Well, let's swap. I'll go back to the Giants." You said, "No, we're at." So I can't take full credit for that because you were definitely a person that was on the Eagles more than I was. I just had it on there just to be a little bit different than what you and Nate had. But yeah, the Eagles, man, they looked really good. Usually you see a 1 seed come out, after they've had a bye week and, become a little bit flat. And I think that was completely opposite. I think the Giants were the team that was really, really flat. I think the Giants thought after the Vikings game and after they, kind of manhandled the Vikings, that was it. Like, that was, they were content with where they were at. And they played the Eagles really good. Obviously a couple weeks before that when, the Eagles didn't have a lot of guys starting. I get that. But yeah, the Giants just did not look good and the Eagles looked really good. And that was the difference in the game. I mean, this game was over in a hurry. And it's not like the Giants have the weapons to make a strong comeback in a game. They don't have the receiving core. They don't have, a gunslinger for a quarterback. And for whatever reason, I think we talked about this last week. Like, I don't understand why you don't get Daniel Jones out of the pocket. Like when he did that in the first half, the first 2.5 quarters against Minnesota, I mean, he was lighting it up all over the field, running, throwing, very accurate, throwing on the run. I thought, well, hey, you know what? He did that really successfully against Minnesota, which is obviously not a good defense. They would at least, go to that a little bit here and there against Philadelphia, and they never did. And I know that, the Giants, front seven is really good. But why not get him out and get some people moving? Like, that's one thing I didn't quite understand about this game. I did have some player props that were pretty hot in this. I had Goddard over 4.5 receptions. He had 5. Hurts and Jones to combine over 1.5 touchdowns, and Hurts had 2 himself. And then I had Richie James over 4.5 receptions, and he had 7. So those were my player props for the game. When I was sitting here watching the game with Jared last Saturday night, I had a really nice night as far as sports betting goes because of these things. So it was fun to watch. It was nice to see Hurts. Like he looked like he's completely fine.
Yeah.
So that's, if you're a 49ers fan, that's probably not the most settling thing this week going into this week's game. But the Eagles looked really good. They played awesome.
Yeah, and one of the Eagle receivers shined, but not the one you would have thought was going to be the one to shine. A.J. Brown, I mean, subpar game and everything, but Devontae Smith, man, for a small receiver as he is and agile and stuff like that, he's turning it up. Had a big game for that last week.
Yeah, I think he's gone 6 for 71 plus in 6 straight games. So this guy's been doing it down the stretch. I think it really helps when Goddard's out there for him. That opens up some things for him, and he's a good route runner. He's not big, so he's got to miss tackles. So very savvy player, great route runner, very fast, very quick, and gets off his blocks pretty good. I don't see a lot of people. You can't really man up on him and play press coverage on him because he's so quick and his footwork's good. So he's been really impressive. AJ Brown. Seeing him on the sideline when they're up 30 points, he's over there kind of throwing a fit, bitching, really kind of pissed me off. Yeah. And Sirianni going over there and kind of consoling them makes me think, and we'll see some player props here coming up soon for this weekend's games for that.
Gotcha. So from one, what do you say? What do you call those diva receivers to another diva receiver? Let's go ahead and talk about the Bengals and the Bills. Diggs, very quiet game in their loss to the Bengals. As I think we all picked the Bengals to cover. They did cover as they kind of took care of the Bills like probably would have happened a couple weeks back when they were playing the game got canceled. They came out the same way they did in that game, and man, I don't want to go back to this and everything, but I feel like the whole the player being there, I almost want to kind of like that drove the emotion of the Bills to where I feel like they didn't play to their best abilities and everything. Your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I just, I don't know what to say other than, I mean, I obviously love Joe Burrow. I think he is, he has every intangible you can imagine as a quarterback, and he's cool about it. He's not a prick. He's goofy. Like he's a good quarterback, and I think nothing rattles him. And when you go into Buffalo after what they dealt with a few weeks ago, he I'm sure his mindset is, we're kind of pissed that this wasn't at a neutral site. Let's go in and prove that, that we should have won that game a few weeks ago, and we should be hosting this game. And I don't know if that's more, locker room material for some people. I don't think it really matters to him. I think he's just that type of quarterback that he's just cool, calm, and collective, and nothing phases him. But this Bengals team is playing really, really good. I mean, they're playing good, and let's face it, the Bills, they're just, they're one of those teams that every year is like everyone picks them to go to the Super Bowl or win the Super Bowl, and then they get in the playoffs. And, let's face it, this AFC conference is an absolute dogfight. I mean, it is a difficult conference. And now you're adding, a team like we thought Jacksonville would win 4 or 5 games this year. And now you see them and you're like, hey, they're going to be a staple in the AFC now also. Yeah. So you have quarterbacks up and down this conference that are really, really good. And, but the Bengals just have this, they have this kind of demeanor about them that, hey, we've been there before. We've won, we won on the road all last year in the playoffs. We can do it again. They just, I don't know, they're just so damn good. They're fun to watch, and they do it in so many different ways. I mean, obviously Chase is a stud. They at one point in time, I saw something this week about, Burrow's like, we got to get Higgins the ball, and someone just like, T, make a play. This one's coming to you, move the sticks. And he made a hell of a catch on that right sideline. So, this game did surprise me a little bit. I thought it would be a little bit more up and down. But Josh Allen, he struggled, and let's face it, they don't have a running game. And when they get away from their running game, the little running game that they have, they're not good. I don't understand. They have a love affair for Devin Singletary. I'm not a fan of him. I think he's a good running back. I don't think he's what they need. Now I don't think James Cook is what what they need either, because I think they need a little bit more of a 3-down back than what James Cook is. But they need to go out and get a running back, whether it be someone like a free agent like Saquon, or even David Montgomery, or Josh Jacobs, or someone like that. Like,
can you imagine Barkley there?
Yeah, I mean that's just, they need that. And they, when they got on a winning streak this year, they ran the ball really well. And so when you get in the postseason, it's, I don't care who you have at quarterback, you need to run the ball. And obviously we saw Cincinnati, Mixon has not done, he's not had that great of a year.
Nope.
But we get in the postseason, he's ran the ball well effectively. P. Ryan ran the ball well. Next thing you know, it opens up everything for those, stud wide receivers and Hayden Hurst. So the Bills have a hard time going to that in the playoffs, and that's never going to get them to a Super Bowl.
Shout out! I'm going to give my game ball. I'm going to give it out to the Bengals defense.
Yeah, awesome,
man.
God, that's awesome.
They've been playing lights out. I mean, I'm telling you, man, this team got it on both sides right now.
They do,
and that's what makes it so hard for them not to pick against. I did pick the Bills to go to the Super Bowl, and obviously that's out the window now due to the Bengals, but not just because they're all-star offense, is because of their defense just stepping up in a huge way.
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning of the year, looking at the schedule, I looked at the Bengals schedule and I'm like, whoa, like this is damn near impossible. We see usually in the NFL, with the exception of Brady, I mean, Brady's rules are different than anyone else's, but we see in the NFL, if you lose in the Super Bowl, you tend to have a little bit of a slower season. Like, it's just natural. And when you have a team like the Bengals that never get to the Super Bowl, you have a second-year quarterback, you have, young wide receivers. Their defense has been okay. You have a makeshift offensive line that actually was good. And then all of a sudden you have to replace 3 guys on the O-line last week, and they're really good. You think about this all year long. They just like their schedule on paper was very difficult this year, and they just continue to win. Like it doesn't matter. I mean, it's awesome to see a franchise like this that you're always just like, oh, they're in the cellar. They're just kind of a crap franchise, And to see them, what they've done the last 2 years it's hard, very difficult to not root for them. I mean, it's exciting to watch them.
It is. Last game of last weekend, Cowboys and the 49ers. 49ers were favored by 4. Me and you picked Cowboys cover. Nate picked the 49ers. Result of the game, not what we thought it was going to be. Dak became Dak. I'm not going to go in depth as far as, look, it's just you got to be able to bring your A game in the crucial times of the playoffs. And look, it just didn't go right for Dak. I mean, kind of 49ers defense is no joke.
Yeah.
And they came to play. Purdy, I mean, look, he had his regular game like always. He didn't fold. He kind of held under the pressure and everything. But gosh dang, man. Tell me about this 49 defense and what you think of how last week's game went.
Whew. I mean, the 49ers defense is awesome. But it helps when you have a guy like Dak who turns the ball over. I mean, it's just, let's face it. I mean, Dak played awesome the week before against Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. And Tampa Bay was 8-9. I mean, let's not, I know it's Brady. I know they had, had a good defense, on paper. I know they, won a Super Bowl a couple years ago, but that Tampa Bay team should not have been playoff bound. I mean, they were not a good team. They were not like, peaking at the right time, where they went on like a 5-game winning streak to get there where they're playing hot. They had one good game this year, and it was against Carolina when Carolina had 4 of their top, 5 secondary guys out. The week that Mike Evans had 3 long touchdowns. That's the only week that Tampa Bay really looked good this year. And it was, leading up to this game against Dallas. So I'm like, oh, well, we'll see. And then, Dak came and showed out and played awesome. And, Tampa Bay played like they normally did, all season long. They, just couldn't really move the ball. But Dak played awesome that game. And then this game, when they're showing him in warmups and he's out there singing and dancing and like, it's almost like he knows there's so much on him to be good that he was trying to act so cool in the situation. And it was almost like an act to me. Like I was watching him in warmups. I'm like, he's going to suck today. Like he's going to struggle. Like he thinks it looked like he knows that he has all this pressure on him as being a Cowboys quarterback. Even after he had his monster game, now people are like, okay, Dak's going to take off. He's going to go. And now you go face a 49ers defense that's absolutely loaded, and they play so well together. And he just looked, even like that, late in the game, like they're down a score, and they showed Dak on the sideline. He's just sitting there like, kind of like, oh, I got this. I got this. No, I mean, does he really believe that? I don't think he does. And so I don't know. He just didn't have it this year. And, I don't mind Dak. I think Dak is a top 15 quarterback in the NFL. I'm just not quite a believer in him this year. And San Francisco obviously showed that and balled out. So
how big was Tony Pollard's injury?
Huge.
That's why I wanted to touch on. It's kind of the same injury that happened to Mahomes.
Yeah.
But his ended up being a lot more serious than Mahomes' injury. And when that happened, I think that took the sails out from underneath the Cowboys and everything.
That's a great point. Great point. Yeah, definitely. I agree with you 100%.
Well, I mean, that pretty much covers. I mean, look, for coach and stuff like that, I know he wanted to see his team go ahead and stuff. And I was pulling for him too to cover. But man, I think let's lead into this week's games. Eagles and the 49ers. Man, I am excited about both games going into this week for the conference championship game. Um, I think, yeah, we do got it going first. So 49ers, Eagles. Eagles are favored -2.5. I think beginning of the week, Eagles were at favor like 3.5. Then all of a sudden it dropped to the 49ers, favored by 2.5, or like something like that. And now all of a sudden it jumped back up to the. Actually, you know what? I'm rethinking. That was the Eagles and Bengals game. Let's Before I just jump totally past that, Eagles -2.5. What do you got?
Oh God, I don't know. I mean, the Eagles played so damn good last week, and I'm not a believer in them. Like I know they're really really good. I just have not seen them beat really really good teams. And on the flip side of that, you can say, well, who has Brock Purdy played? And his schedule has been very very soft in all the games he's played. When I go back and forth on this, because those are my two weighted options in this, and I think that Jalen Hurts is playing really good. He played really good all season long, and he looked completely healthy last week. So I think there's an advantage there with the Eagles. I think them playing at home is an advantage. I think the Eagles have a little bit more pressure on them than the 49ers. And so I personally, I'm not an Eagles fan. I've said this on the show before. It's a team I do not root for. I do not like them. I do not like their coach. I think their fans are ruthless, and but whatever. I mean, and it's hard for me as a Packers fan to root for the 49ers, but I think the Eagles at home is good enough. And the reason why I took the Eagles -2.5 is because of CMC's injury. And who's their other running back? Elijah Mitchell. Both didn't practice today. CMC said there's 0% chance he does not play in this game. So that kind of persuades me one way, but to have those top two running backs out in this game, I think is a huge, huge thing for the 49ers. And more than anyone else, Brock Purdy needs that. He needs that running game to be really, really good to open up the play action. And that's where he's good. I mean, he's good at, running the play action, getting out of the pocket, setting his feet when he's going to the left, and on the right, he can throw on the run pretty good. But in order for that to happen, he has to have the play action rolling for him. And in order to get the play action running, you need a good running game. And we saw Purdy didn't throw a touchdown last weekend. Their defense got shut down. Or their running backs got shut down. San Francisco's did. They didn't do much on the ground, and that showed. Obviously they still came out of there with a win. They scored 19 points. I don't think you can do that against this Eagles offense. Like, I don't think you can do that and win. So I have the Eagles -2.5. It's hard for me to pick against the 49ers because I think the 49ers are the better team. I think that they are, I don't know. It's hard for me to do that with the injuries of CMC and Mitchell. If one of them was banged up and the other one was, obviously perfectly fine, I think I would have switched this pick. But having both of them not practice today really has me a little bit worried.
Yeah, you could see it last week's game. I know there were certain points of the game where Elijah Mitchell came in the second half, and it almost felt like he was out there more than McCaffrey. But when they panned to the sideline, he was nursing like he had like a heating pad around his calf and everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, Elijah Mitchell looked good, and I didn't see anything happen to him as far as injury wise. Maybe just the usage of him maybe re-aggravated something.
Yeah, I don't even know what his injury is.
Same here. But we talk about running.
He's never really stayed on the field though. He's always been injury prone. So
yeah. Now we talk about the running game with the 49ers. I don't see CMC and Mitchell missing this game. I think that some rest time and everything to have them ready for this. But they also got Debo that can line up in the backfield too. I think Debo is someone you got to have in. If I didn't look at his player props and everything, I should have put some on there. But look, Debo's going to be heavily usage in this game if CMC and a Mitchell are not up to 100% to be able to contribute like they normally would.
Yeah, so, I think Debo is the absolute X factor in this game.
Yeah.
Obviously, whenever you have someone like him on the field, you would think like this guy's important. But I think this week more than ever with these two running backs, kind of illed and banged up a little bit, I think exactly what you said. Like Debo they're going to find a way to get him the ball. And you have the perfect offensive coach to do this.
Yep.
They're going to find him a way to get the ball wherever and whenever they possibly can, just to take some heat off those guys. Because I think CMC does play. I don't know about Elijah Mitchell because CMC plays through pain quite a bit. Elijah Mitchell doesn't typically. So you're going to see Debo all over. He does not have a rushing prop out. I've looked, I don't know, probably 3 times a day all week, just because I'm waiting to do it. Last week when we did this show, his rushing prop was 14.5. And then it was never available again on Sunday. So, and I wanted to bet it last week. Thank God I didn't because he only got 11. But this week, I mean, I'm assuming his rushing prop is going to be, probably around 22.
Yeah, that's why I would think 18 to 22 around.
Yeah, and I think he gets all of that in this game. I mean, it's one of those things where he's going to have to touch the ball a ton. And, if you think about last year's playoffs, when they, obviously when they made their run, they came into Green Bay and won. They went and played, the Rams and gave them a hell of a game. Debo touched the ball a ton. And they know that. They know, like, hey, what's our ticket to being good? It's Debo getting the ball. And obviously they have some they have other weapons. Kittle's played really good of late. Ayuk has played pretty good with Purdy. But Debo and CMC, I think those are the guys that you're going to see get as many touches as possible. And I don't know if CMC is going to be limited or not. That's going to be something that we watch pretty closely once the game begins.
Yeah, if you sit here and look at on paper as far as both sides, offense and defense, both teams are lined up with star players across the board. If I remember correctly, Purdy played for, I can't remember his college team, but
Iowa
Purdy
State.
and what was that?
Iowa State.
Yeah. Purdy and Hurts have played against each other back in the college, and Purdy came out on top on that game.
No, he lost by 1.
Oh, okay. But as far as stat wise, though,
yeah, on stat wise, yes, he did. They made Iowa State made a huge run in the second half, and I think they went for 2 late in the game and didn't get it, so they lost by 1.
So it's nice seeing this matchup with these two quarterbacks. But man, like I said, I mean, you got key players at all kinds of positions, defensively and offensively. 49ers defense is no joke. Eagles defense is no joke either. Yeah, 49ers defense probably has the edge as far as overall defense and everything. Kittle, I wanted to kind of discuss Kittle real quick. He had a good game last week too. He had one, I don't know if you saw that catch.
Yeah.
There was a catch that he had. Probably should have been called back. It should have been a flag. Because I don't know if you've seen this and stuff like that, but if you go back and watch the play, another tight end was covering up Kittle. He shouldn't have been able to go down, and he did sneak out, and surprisingly, they didn't catch that. But, man, that was a beautiful catch. I mean, he went out to catch it, and I don't know if that was Warner that was coming to light him up, but it's like he pulled that ball back right as he was coming.
Yeah.
To watch that play, it was freaking awesome. That was one of the I love that play, the way everything unfolded. Freaking Purdy kind of rolled out to the left and just kind of slung it out there and everything. Yeah. It was a beautiful play, but I think tight ends in this game will be a key factor. Goddard and Kittle.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be a key factor in this game. Player prop wise, I had Goddard scoring the first TD this game. It's plus 1,100. So that's one of my player props. I'm taking Hurts under 251.5 passing yards. And I'm also taking Miles Sanders, over 51 and a half rushing yards. I don't think he's going to have a crazy game. 49ers run game is no joke, but I think he does enough maybe to get 52, 53 yards to barely cover this. What do you got on player props?
Yeah, so I have a ton of player props in this game.
You do. You always have a ton of player props.
Yeah. And I, besides that Cowboys game last week, I had a really, really good weekend on player props. But so my big thing I like this week is Kenny Gainwell. I mean, he was the guy that looked really, really good last week. Obviously, it was more in garbage time. He is a coach's favorite. He's a front office favorite. That's their one running back that they drafted. The rest of the guys were inherited. So I know that the front office, the coaching staff loves Kenny Gainwell. I love his props of over 11.5 rushing yards and over 8.5 receiving yards. He's had 7 straight games of more than 7 receiving yards. So I know it's 8.5, but I mean, he's getting catches out of the backfield. He's electric when he does touch the ball. I like his combination of over and receiving and rushing of 22.5. I like Goddard over 4.5 receptions. Goddard's one of those guys that I think is kind of unspoken and not really talked about in this Eagles team. When Goddard went down, we saw the Eagles start to struggle a little bit, and no one really brings that up. Obviously,
the one thing that did happen real quick, Abe, and that's what I kind of want to touch on, is when Goddard was out, that's when you saw AJ Brown shine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And with him being back and everything, yeah, he didn't have the best of game last week. Goddard did have a decent game. So I think they kind of feed into each other as far as how they perform.
Yeah. And that leads perfectly up to my next prop is AJ Brown over 70.5 receiving yards and a touchdown. I mean, when I brought this up a little bit earlier about AJ Brown kind of throwing a temper tantrum when they're up 30. That really kind of pissed me off. It's just one of those things that, like, I mean, you people take clips from sports, people all over. Obviously, me being a Rodgers fan, people take inserts and clips from him all the time. They don't hear the next sentence, but they take the one sentence that's going to get clicks and clickbait and all that stuff. To see AJ Brown last week kind of act like that when they're up 30 because he didn't have a good personal game really pissed me off. And me personally, watching the game of football a lot, I know Sirianni went up and kind of consoled him. Guess who they're going to get involved right away? It's AJ Brown, because they don't want him. They can't afford to have him, sit there and pout because he's not getting the ball because Goddard and Slim Reaper or whatever his name is getting all the catches, Devonta. So I think they get him involved often, and I think they get him involved early, and I think he gets well over 70.5 receiving yards. And I do think he scores. I have a couple more player props. CMC over 31.5 receiving yards. This Philly team is really good up the middle. I don't think you can run the ball up the middle. I think they're going to have to get CMC kind of out in space, where he's a little bit more effective for the most part with Carolina. And you're going to have to do this against this front four where, just get him outside. And the way to do that is to throw him the ball. And obviously he's great at catching it. So I like him over 31.5 receiving yards. My last player prop is Juwan Jennings, over 22.5 receiving yards. This is one to really, really keep an eye on because he may not get something at the beginning of the game, but if you're a live bettor, I think that this prop goes down under 20. He's going to go up against the slot corner, who is Avonte Maddox, I think his name is, for the Eagles. And he practiced today, but he may not play. And even if he does play, he gave up 7 for 60 to Richie James last week. So, keep Juwan Jennings in mind. The conference championship games, obviously you want to get the ball to the studs, get them involved, all that stuff. But you also need a big play from a random guy. And we've seen Purdy likes throwing to Jennings. So I like that prop as well. There's that makes it 5, 6, 7 props or something on here that I like. But, I've watched enough Eagles games. I've watched enough 49ers games, conference championship. We know that anything can happen. So this game is going to be a fun one to watch. And I'm looking forward to it. And hopefully a lot of these props hit because I'm definitely going to be playing them.
Yeah, if it's one thing I learned this year is to make sure I get on here and put my player props on before you get on, because you start picking all of them. So I got to try to pick some before you get involved in it.
Yeah.
Real quick, before we move on to Bengals Chiefs, over and under on the Eagles 49ers game, 46.5. What do you got?
Oh God. I was the one that put that over under up there. And
you put it up there, so I'm hitting it.
Oh shit. Like, I don't know what's the thing. I think this game goes under, and I think it's around 45. So I think we're looking at a 24-21 game.
Yep, low scoring game. Definitely, I'm taking under both defenses. I think is like I said, as star-studded as they are offensive and defensively, I think defense shines in this game. There's going to be some bright moments for everybody, but I think the defense is really this is going to be a defensive game. I went back and looked. Obviously, they didn't play each other this year. They did play each other last year. I know there's some different key people in the teams now and everything, but almost a lot of good people there that were still there from last year. Obviously, Garoppolo isn't playing this game. It's Purdy. Last year was 17-11, if I remember correctly, the score last year. So should be a good defensive game and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm taking the under 2.
One thing to keep in mind, the 49ers has never played or beat the Eagles in the NFC. They're the only team in the NFC the 49ers have not beaten in the playoffs. So you got to think that they have that in mind. I think I heard this from a 49ers player this week. So you know that is on their mind, like, hey, we have a chance as an organization to beat every team in the NFC. We got to fly all the way across the East Coast and do this. But, this great organization in the 49ers, that they've never played them or beat them. And that's kind of odd because obviously San Francisco is always in the playoffs.
Yep, correct.
And Philly's had quite a few runs themselves. So pretty crazy stat. But yeah, that's something to definitely think about as well before this game kicks off.
All right, AFC Championship Conference game. Bengals at the Chiefs. Now, this team did play each other this year, and
I was just watching actually the replay of it.
That game right there was, if I remember, I had the stats pulling up. It's reloading for me. Bengals own the Chiefs. They're 3-0. I think the last 3 games against them. The last game, Bengals pulled it out 27-24.
Yeah.
Man, it leads into everything this year, to this game right here. Kansas City is, like I said, this was the one I was talking about where the spread bounced back and forth and everything because of Mahomes, his injury.
Yeah.
I'm seeing footage. I mean, he looks fine out there running around. When he came out of the conference room, didn't really see any gitch in his step, however you want to say that. And then they showed him out on the practice field running around and stuff like that, trotting out there. Yeah, I mean, it flopped back and forth. Chiefs now are favored -1 over the Bengals because of them being at home. What do you got?
I mean, it's crazy to watch this number bounce. And speaking of why we're talking about numbers, no matter what matchup next week is, the odds are out, and they're all 1-point spreads. That's crazy about that also. Like that bodes for a really good weekend and a good Super Bowl, that's for sure. But
yeah,
I just don't know. I mean, I honestly want to pick the Bengals. I like the Bengals more. I think they have more weapons. They've got in Mahomes and the Chiefs number. The problem is the number one reason, I'll say it right now, I picked the Chiefs. The number one reason why I picked the Chiefs is because about 85% of the money coming in is on the Bengals. And I know most of that money was probably coming in when they were +1.5, Sunday night and Monday.
Mm-hmm.
But those numbers aren't dropping drastically, now that Mahomes, it has, people have seen them. The spread has dropped and gone in, the Chiefs' favor. But I mean, why is that? I don't know. My theory as a bettor all the time is if the majority of people are betting one team, the house usually wins. Vegas usually wins, right? So, you want to side with the Chiefs, and that was the reason why I picked the Chiefs. I want the Bengals to win. I'm rooting for the Bengals. If the Chiefs win, I'm as equally excited because I think both of these teams put up a hell of a Super Bowl. So,
yeah.
With that being said, I am taking the Chiefs -1. I don't know. I'm not confident in it. Because I will probably be rooting for Cincinnati because of how much I like Burrow, but it's gonna be fun to watch. I mean, Mahomes, he did look okay. In my opinion, if Mahomes was banged up, I think he would have been standing on the sideline or sitting on the sideline with a boot on. He looked a little flat-footed when he went down the stairs.
That's true.
After his press conference. And I'm sure he's trying to figure out a way to do this. A high ankle sprain is a high ankle sprain. You're not getting rid of it. I mean, it's not like you're good to go in a week or something. A high ankle sprain, I had this plenty of times playing, basketball. It is not an easy injury to get rid of. We saw him last week at quarterback. It limited his play. And I think that's where Mahomes has really kind of sets himself apart from a lot of other quarterbacks is when he gets out of the pocket and he throws sidearm or he kind of jumps throws or whatever he does. He's so good at making quick last minute decisions out of the pocket that move the sticks. And we'll see if he can do that or not on Sunday. And if he can, I think the Chiefs have a really, really good chance of winning this game. If he's back there flat-footed and Jerick McKinnon is sitting there, blocking linebackers and stuff like that, and Mahomes is sitting in the pocket. I know Mahomes is one of the best quarterbacks out there. I get it, but he's better outside the pocket. He's not someone that can just sit back there and fling it. He's got Kelsey. He's got weapons still. I know Tyreek. I get all that stuff, but he can still do that. But that's not where he's best at. That's not where the Chiefs won all their games this year. They won all their games because Mahomes can ad lib and he can do whatever the hell he wants when he gets outside the pocket. So I do have the Chiefs -1. I'm interested to see how he's moving around. If he's struggling a little bit to move, I may go live bet the Bengals. If the Chiefs come down and score a touchdown right off the bat and he's flat-footed in the pocket, that may be a good time to go put a number down on the Bengals, because the Bengals don't get that. Like I've said, they don't get rattled. They, even if they get down 7 right off the bat, they'll be okay. So that will be interesting. That is obviously a major part we're going to watch in this game. Mm-hmm. I do have some player props on this, and a lot of these are Bengals, so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me picking the Chiefs. But I love P. Ryan over 16.5 receiving yards. I love this prop a lot. The Bengals, they don't have the best running game. They do use it when they need to, but P. Ryan's been playing more and more snaps, and especially on third down when they need to move the chains, it's been more him than Mixon. So I like P. Ryan over 16.5 receiving yards. I like Justin Watson over 8.5 receiving yards. He's a guy that Mahomes goes to 1 or 2 times in the game, and if he does, he gets them for 10, 15, 20 yards. This guy's a former tight end, now lines up at wide receiver. And Mahomes doesn't have a ton of options. We've seen some receivers drop some balls for him this year. And so there's certain guys that Mahomes kind of goes to. So I like Justin Watson over 8.5 receiving yards. I like the Bengals over 2.5 touchdowns and over 23.5 points. And I like Irwin, the wide receiver, the fourth wide receiver for the Bengals, to catch more than 7.5 receiving yards. He's a guy that Burrow looked at a few times last week. He dropped a ball on the right to move the chains. I think the next play is when they went to Higgins. But this is a guy that does get on the field quite a bit. If we do get in kind of a track meet of a game, and let's face it, these over-unders this weekend, typically when you get in this time of season, you see the over-unders drop. You see these numbers really move down to like the mid to low 40s. Mm-hmm. And we saw over-unders all season long get lower and lower and lower and lower. And now we're seeing them rise. And it's just because of the offensive, power, weapons that they have. But so if this game gets in a little bit of shootout, you're going to see a lot of overs hit. So those are my player props I like. I'm not confident with the Chiefs -1, but the only reason I'm picking it is because the general public is really, really high on the Bengals, and usually Vegas wins.
That is true. Now, I see your player prop on Perrine over 16.5 receiving yards. The last time they played, Mixon was injured, not in the game. Perrine had a huge game. So it kind of leads into my player prop. Obviously, I'm picking the Bengals to cover. I think if you sit down and look at it, Bengals star-studded receiving core that they have outshines the Mahomes receiving cast. Yeah. Although they got Kelsey and everything, the Bengals defense kind of held them in check the last time around. I want to say Valdez-Scantling, he only had 2 receptions, but they were some long ones. Kelsey, I want to say he had like 4 to 6 receptions. Kind of kept him in check. I see him being more involved this time around, but it kind of leads back to me going back to Mixon. I think Mixon being in this game, he's going to be heavily used in this. I'm taking him Mixon at any time score. I like him scoring. Mahomes, I'm taking the under of 286.5 passing yards. Last game they played against the Bengals, I think he was like 235, somewhere around that range. Because they kind of held him in check and everything. I see them kind of doing it. And with him having this injury, it's going to even kind of, if you saw some of his passes last week after his injury, you could tell it was truly affecting him on how he was throwing that ball out and everything. Although he's a star, there was that one play where he jumped up, while I was in the air and threw that pass. It's crazy what he's able to do. Yeah. But he is going to be hampered, and I think that does affect him a lot in this game and everything. I know he's going to have his moments. He's going to shine. He's Mahomes, but I think when it comes down to it, that injury is going to be a factor more than, and I'm sure a lot of people are thinking it's going to be too, but I think it's going to really hamper him to where, like I said, Bengals defense, man, they've been exceeding what everybody thought of them this year.
Yeah. Hey, you've brought them up a few times today, and they need way more recognition than what you've given them and what we've given them. I mean,
Yeah.
they've been freaking awesome. Like, I mean, to see who Eli Apple is shutting down.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, you are right on. You're spot on with that.
But the Chiefs defense, same thing, man. They've been stepping it up the second half of the year. They've had, Chris Jones, I'm going right now. He's over 7.5 sacks. Bengals offensive line held up well last week. I don't think he was sacked at all, if I remember correctly. I think Chris Jones will get to him. That guy's a beast. He gets up in between in that middle and everything, and he just wreaks havoc.
Yeah, he's awesome.
So I'm taking him over 0.75 in sacks. But like I said, I am having the Bengals win this. I think if he wasn't hurt, it'd be a different. I think I might be swinging the Chiefs because, like I said, Bengals did win him. I think if Chiefs was Mahomes was healthy, I think it'd be a better outcome for them. But I really feel this hampering the way the results of this game, especially after they played each other. Bengals own them the last 3 times, so I think they make it 4-0.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be an awesome game, and I love your Chris Jones play. He was one of 3 guys to be up for Defensive Player of the Year. With Bosa and Micah Parsons. And honestly, we went through Defensive Player of the Year a couple weeks ago when we did these, and his name wasn't even brought up, and that's crazy for us not to do that. He's been awesome. I mean, you think about this Chiefs team, and we talked, before the season, and just said like I personally said I don't know, I wouldn't be shocked if this Chiefs team is 3rd or 4th in their own division, and because of we just thought that division was going to be absolutely incredible. I think I picked them 3rd because of my hatred towards Russ and the Broncos. I thought they were the most overrated team in football this year, and that obviously proved true. But it's just this Chiefs team. You think about, hey, we lost Tyreek, we lost, their defensive guy in Honey Badger. That's not even really talked about. They lost 2 of their most proficient guys on their team, and here we are. They're the number 1 seed, and they by far the toughest conference. And they've been awesome all year. I mean, it's honestly, it's a little bit disheartening that Mahomes isn't 100%, because if he was, this game would be awesome. Yeah. I mean, and I think it's going to be really good anyways, but it's one of those things, and we'll probably see some Mahomes magic. It's just what happens. The guy he's an absolute stud. So he's going to pull something out. I mean, that's just who he is. So I'm really looking forward to this game. Obviously, this is the game I'm looking forward to the most between the two. But yeah, you're right on. You're spot on. Like, I like the Mixon anytime score. I like the Mahomes under 287, 286.5 passing. I love the Chris Jones prop. So everything you have on here, I am all for, because I couldn't find a lot of props that I liked in this, because I think I'll live bet more of this game just because I want to see Mahomes. I want to see how he, kind of reacts and how he's moving. But you really open up my eyes with all 3 of your player props. Those are awesome.
So before we close this out with long shot bets, over and under Bengals and Chiefs, 48. What do you got, Abe?
It's a lot of points, but I like the over. It's just hope. It's a hopeful fan here that we get up. This game gets up and down the field. I meant to ask you this. Do you know if there's any weather? I haven't seen anything for either game. Is there any weather implications?
You know what? I'm about 3 hours, maybe 4 hours from Kansas City. There is a Arctic blast coming through, but it's not until Monday and Tuesday of the week.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't see anything like snowstorms or kind of like what the Buffalo and Bengals game was and everything. Yeah. I don't see that. It's going to be cold and everything. I think that's what we're looking at. Maybe some wind.
Yeah. I mean, same thing here. We're, 4 hours away from Kansas City. Here on Sunday, I saw it's supposed to be like 25 and Sunday or sunny. So there is probably, I mean, it could be around 30 and sunny, but obviously this game's kicking off at 5:30,
Correct.
6 o'clock at night. So it'll be a little bit more cold, but I haven't seen anything on the Philadelphia game either. And that has a little bit to do with it, but that's why I'm taking the over is I don't think there's going to be too much weather. And I'm not going to bet the over. I'll be honest with you, just because I don't know what Mahomes is going to look like.
Yeah.
But it's hopeful and wishful, to have these two teams go up and down the field. So that's why I would choose the over of 48.
So over and under 48. Their last game 24-27, 51 points. So I'm taking the under.
Yeah.
I think they know this team. They've matched against each other well.
Yeah.
They know each other and stuff. I think there's going to be some scores, but I think the factor of Mahomes' injury is what makes this drop down. Let's say 4 points and 47. I'm taking the under. I mean, it barely got over it last time, and that I want to say everybody was healthy in that game except Mixon. So yeah, I'm taking the under on this. It's the conference game. They know each other. It's going to be a tough game. Both defenses are a lot better than the last time they played. I mean, they've been good all year, but they know each other. I mean, these teams. It's kind of hard to say. It's kind of like saying they should be in the same conference together, like with the Raiders and the because they played each other this year and stuff. They know each other. They play each other in the playoffs. Almost the same team, excluding Hill. The receivers on the Kansas City is a little bit different than what they had before. John over here is 37 degrees, 6 to 8 miles per hour. Yeah, no rain. Should be a sunny, bright game for this this game.
Yeah, I mean this rivalry is actually turning pretty fun. I mean, because these are two of the best to do it. So it's fun that we get to witness this, 2 straight years to go to the Super Bowl.
All right, I'm taking the under. You're taking the over. Long shots of the week. Give me your long shot, Abe, because mine ain't really a long shot.
Yeah, so I have a couple. My first one, shocking. Yeah, I'm gonna take some long shots. My first one is AJ Brown and Debo to combine to score 1 touchdown over 0.5. And I'm parlaying that with Kelsey and Jamar Chase to combine over 1.5 touchdowns. So if AJ Brown and Debo get 1 touchdown combined and Kelsey and Chase combined for 2 touchdowns, parlayed together, it's plus 338. I definitely think AJ Brown and Debo can get 1. I think that Kelsey for sure scores or Chase. And if they can combine for 2, great. I hit a parlay at plus 338. It's not really a long shot, but gosh darn it, we got to do everything we can with 2 games. So here's my really, really, really long shot is the same game parlay. Is Burrow over 1.5 touchdowns, Boyd over 29.5 receiving yards, Watson over 4 receiving yards, Pirine over 10 receiving yards, Juju over 4 receptions, and Sky Moore to score. Sky Moore to score. They gave him the ball a couple times in the red zone last week, and he dropped a ball, and then he got stuffed early. This is a guy I think Mahomes trusts. I think that, I think Cincinnati is going to be a little bit more keyed on Kelsey in the red zone. And so there's going to be someone that opens up, and why not be a guy coming out of the backfield that goes in motion a lot. If you're playing, I know Cincinnati plays a lot of zone, but if you put a guy in motion and they run someone with them, Sky Moore might be a guy that actually goes and sits in the corner of the end zone and gets 1. So that is 80-1, and all of those numbers are really dropped down besides Sky Moore scoring. So that's a really, really long shot, and it's about 6 plays. But
so you're giving Sky Moore some love, but you're not giving Kadarius Toney any love at all.
I know, and I'm a big
feel
fan
like
of Toney.
That's why Sky Moore really hasn't lived up to his hype from the beginning from preseason is because of Kadarius Toney and stuff like that.
And I love myself some Kadarius Toney, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think I wanted to kind of hit that because I truly feel there was so much talking to Sky Moore leading up to the NFL season this year and everything, and which he didn't really do much at all. And they brought in Toney in later in the year, mid-year and stuff like that. But he didn't do much. But he was involved in a lot of plays last week. and I like him being involved this week too. Kind of being like that third kind of slash receiver running back, kind of like Debo with the 49ers and everything, because they do sweeps with him. They could do all kinds of stuff with them and everything. So I do like Tony.
They try getting the ball in his hands. I mean, and he's good. I think he's going to be Mahomes' guy of the future. He's a good receiver. He's good out of the backfield. He's like you said, he's kind of like a Debo guy. He's just like, he's not bigger. He's not as big as Debo.
Correct.
But he's just one of those guys that you want to find a way to get him the ball. And they've done that last few weeks. I sit there and witness it. I'm like, oh, here comes Sky Moore. Like, really? And then they went to him again. And I'm like, and he got stuff short. And I was like, yeah, just kind of put that in your, kind of put that in there and think about it next week. And so when I was doing this, he was on the, he's 8-1 to score a touchdown. If you just want to just do him by himself. And then on the same game parlay, he was 10-1. And I was like, well, hey, if I really want a long shot,
there you go. You're right.
So
like I said, mine really ain't a long shot. It's the weekly special on DraftKings. Same game parlay, Burrow 275 plus passing yards and Mixon 60 plus rushing yards. Like I said, it truly ain't really a long shot. They could easily both do this. I just want to win a damn long shot of the week.
We haven't done it.
All right.
Let me get our shot real quick.
Yeah, knock yourself out. Once again, championship weekend. These are going to be some great games. Abe is going Eagles covering, and he has the Chiefs covering. I have the Eagles and the Bengals covering. My man Nate on vacation this week got a little bit too busy where he wasn't able to input his information in there, but I know he'll be kind of keeping an eye on these games too and everything. So
he will.
Abe,
cheers
to the long shot of the week, sir.
Let's get one.
Appreciate you, man.
Let's get one.
And with that being said, you got anything before we conclude?
No, looking forward to this weekend. Next week we have a week off before the Super Bowl. I don't know if we'll be on here or not. What do you think? Maybe recapping the games, and then the week after we'll just do a preview of all the Super Bowl stuff. Or
there's a lot of stuff we could kind of go over and everything. We could do Super Bowl props and everything, kind of leading up to that and everything. So there's multiple things that we could do. So we'll come back to it, get with Nate, see what the plans are and everything. Anything going on in NASCAR we could touch on?
There is a race. The first race is on the 5th, so it would be next weekend. So we can find something to talk about.
Gotcha.
Yeah, have a couple of cocktails and talk. Yeah, sure, we can do that.
All right, so that is this week's episode of Dollars to Deuces Conference Championship. I'm probably not good at repeating the way Nate says it. Keep testing positive, or how's that go?
Staying positive and testing negative.
There you go. From my man Nate, from my man Abe, y'all have a great weekend, and let's enjoy some football.
Yeah, good luck, y'all.